In spaceflight, there's explosions, and then there's explosions. That is quite possibly the most spectacular rocket failure that I've ever seen. And it happened during the first ever orbital launch attempt from continental Europe. I think we're so used to seeing rocket launches from sunny Florida or Texas, but this was Norway, inside the Arctic Circle.
It's frickin' freezing in here, Mr. Bigglesworth.
I'm Kristin Fisher, an independent space journalist, CNN contributor, former Fox News White House correspondent, and the daughter of 2 NASA astronauts. And this was the very first test flight of German-based Isar Aerospace's Spectrum rocket. It's a big deal because right now, Europe has 0 rockets that are capable of getting to orbit. 0. And for Europe, it's becoming increasingly unsavory to keep relying on Elon Musk and SpaceX or even NASA, which is facing all of those budget cuts.
Houston, we have a problem.
Now, this may look like a failure. And yes, it didn't make it to orbit, but almost no rocket makes it to orbit on a first attempt, especially if you're moving fast, and especially if you're not afraid to accept some early failures as the price of progress. That's what SpaceX did in the United States, and it's what Isar is trying to do now in Europe. So joining me now is Isar's Chief Commercial Officer, Stella Guillen. Stella, it's so good to see you. You were there in Norway for Spectrum's first test flight. What was it like?
Thanks, Kristen. What can I say? It was a very emotional day. The team had worked so hard, 7 years in the making, and I think we did learn quite a lot. We did great. We had perfect operations before launch. The team did fantastic, and we had 30 seconds of flight, which was enough time, let's say, to collect a lot of data. And of course, we actually had designed and built our flight termination system, which worked flawlessly when it had to work. The whole experience was fantastic. Very, very emotional for me personally. I was there with some customers and people from the area as well. And it was just amazing. I couldn't hold tears, to be honest.
I think people in the space industry saw that and knew what that was, a first test flight. But for people not in the space industry, I think it's really easy to see that and be like, what are you guys talking about? It exploded. How could this be a success?
I mean, you're right, right? The space industry understands it very well. I think the public, it's getting there as space becomes more and more, let's say, tangible in day-to-day ways of life. I tell you, for sure, our investors understand, and the people that are trusting us with their payloads and have booked already flights are understanding that. So I think it's changing. I think the general public, it's getting there. It's getting to understand how difficult it is. So imagine building not only the designing and building the launch vehicle, which is already a huge thing, right? A complicated thing, but also doing the test facilities, the factory, and the launch pad. All this in a bit more than 4 years. So I think people understand is like, wow, okay, you guys really got to attempt to launch with everything else that you've done. I think there's a lot of understanding there, how hard, how complicated, and how much effort it took us to get there.
So even though the rocket exploded on its first attempt, you all at Isar still saw that as a huge success. Why?
This is the whole thing about embracing failure, right? We have to quickly think about the best way to learn is to actually fly. And we wanted to get to that learning point as soon as possible. And that was exactly our mentality. And we had very specific goals sets that we, purposely put in place for ourselves, which is it would be a great success if we have enough time on of flight to be able to recoup enough data that would take us to a huge improvement and a big leap for the second flight. It also meant a lot not to let's say damage the pad in any way, because imagine that would have been a step back, right? So
Sure.
it was simple goals that we wanted to accomplish with this first flight. And we did. So for that, we were extremely happy. Of course, everybody, wanted more, including ourselves. It would have been more, nice to have more. But we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish with this first flight.
Walk me through the test flight. It lifted off. We saw a bit of a wobble at about 15 seconds in, and then the flight termination system is what essentially caused the rocket to explode. Was that automatic, or did somebody in mission control punch a button and terminate it that way?
Yeah, it was manual for this test flight. So we had actually about 30-second total flight, but you are correct. We had an intended opening of a vent that happened as we were ascending, an vent valve, and that basically initiated the events that led into the flight failure. But we have in 2 months we have completed the report. There was no hardware failure at all. So corrective actions have been taken. We actually have built already the second flight, and we're building already the third flight, which is in the factory. And that's the reason why we're coming back to second launch so quickly.
Yeah, when do you think flight 2 will be?
So flight 2, we are targeting and hoping for this year, within this year. We're obviously working very hard right now to, as fast as we can, to incorporate all these changes, all these improvements, enhancements, and corrections to be able to come to launch right away.
This whole philosophy of pushing the vehicle to the point of failure so that you can get that data and learn a lot about it. I mean, that's straight out of SpaceX's playbook. You used to work at SpaceX. How much of SpaceX's ethos and culture have you and other people at Isar who worked at SpaceX, how much of that are you guys trying to bring to Europe? And essentially, I mean, from what I can tell, it looks like you guys are trying to position Isar Aerospace as the SpaceX of Europe.
I mean, we're very lucky to have had SpaceX before us, and Rocket
Mm.
Lab, and some others. I think we're extremely lucky. I mean, we can learn very quickly from things that they did wrong, that they did right. And I think this whole thing about testing, and fly and fail as fast as you can. I think that's just a general philosophy. SpaceX adopted it very well, but I think we now are like full believers of it because of the amount of data that we've acquired from this first flight. The Europeans are not used to that philosophy that much, especially in the space industry. So it's something very new to the space industry here in Europe. But I think it's not something that has happened in the past. So
I
it's
was gonna say, I mean, historically speaking, Europe has been pretty conservative when it comes to
very
its
much so.
appetite for failure and big spectacular explosions like the ones we saw from Spectrum's first test flight. How is that being received in the European Union, ESA?
It has been it's sort of like a learning curve for everybody. The retirement of Ariane 5 and the delays of Ariane 6, the grounding of Vega C after their failure, the loss of Soyuz, and due to geopolitical tensions, etc. All of that, Europeans are like, oh my God, now we really are in a European launcher crisis, basically.
Yeah.
If you think about the amount of launches the US has performed last year, I don't remember the number, 140 some, and to Europe has performed only three. It is a crisis.
Right now the crisis is that there is no European rocket that can get European payloads into space because, like you said, Ariane
Exactly.
5's retired, Ariane 6 has been delayed, the Vega C has been grounded, can't launch on a Russian Soyuz because of the war in Ukraine. So that really leaves you guys with SpaceX or some other American launch provider. And right now, given the current state of American politics,
Yep.
I would imagine some of those launch options aren't particularly appetizing to a lot of Europeans.
Yeah, absolutely. Ariane 6 now it's back, let's say, in launching, but it launches a few times a year. It's not a launcher that can
Yeah.
launch every week, right? Vega C is also back, also with the same situation. By the way, they're all full until 2027, 2028,
The
and
manifests are full?
the manifest, yeah, because there are European payloads and programs that need to launch European. And if a European payload wants to fly European, they're full. There's nothing on the manifest. So it's a very particular time in the market where, of course, SpaceX having the capability to be launching on a weekly basis, it's suitable right now for all this for all these missions. And this is what we want to change. This is exactly what we want to change and to do it quickly. And this is why we are so impressed, and the tears come to my eyes when I see something happening in only 4 years of this magnitude. And I get so excited because it is possible. We are behind, but we want to catch up, and we want to do it in a quick way so that we can provide another alternative.
I think a lot of people see SpaceX and how dominant of a launch provider they are and think, gosh, how could anybody like Isar or anybody else compete with a giant like SpaceX? But because of the political realities of the day, the geopolitical realities of the day, the need for Europe to be able to launch its own sensitive military payloads or its own small satellite constellations into orbit, you feel like there's a really compelling case that a startup like Isar can really go against somebody like SpaceX even now.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's not going to be challenging, right? I mean, of
Hmm.
course, it's going to be very challenging, and we have to, like I said, we have to kind of hurry up. But it will be important for us. I think it is important for us to be successful for sovereignty in nations around the world. And don't forget that if SpaceX tomorrow, for whatever reason, disappears, there's also the US also has no alternative, right? I mean, not right at the
Fair
second,
point.
right?
Fair point.
There
Yeah.
are so I mean this is one of the reasons why NATO now is so concentrated on their space programs, because they have to work a way to for NATO allies to work together to create this and to fortify this part of the industry, which is really right now in crisis.
Well, and you guys did just get a bit of support from an American investment, right? I'm looking at my notes here. Where do I have
Yeah.
it? ESAR just secured 150 million euros in its latest funding round, which is led by Eldridge Industries, a US based investment firm. What does it say that you guys now have a big investment from an American investment firm?
It says a lot. I mean, as an investor alone, I think that they see the potential that we have, but also how we are working. They see how we are set up. So Isar Aerospace is very much set up in a way that we want to, industrialization and speed is sort of like in DNA. How you manufacture and how quickly you can scale up, it's key. So that combined with the team and combined with what we have already shown that we can do and the speed that we can do things, I think it's attractive for investors.
So if, let's say, this next Spectrum test flight goes well, the second test flight, how quickly could you guys scale up and start putting clients or customers' payloads up into orbit?
So this is an interesting one because we do have payloads on the second flight.
Oh, you
Uh,
do? Wow.
Yeah, it's CubeSats. We have a few CubeSats on the second flight, and then our third flight already also has payloads as well.
Wow.
We're actually we our flights in 2026, they're all are sold out to commercial customers. So we didn't go the traditional way to say we have empty test, empty without passengers. and then we start commercialization. And we didn't do this sort of on purpose. It kind of happens because the market really needs launch access. So we are a little bit constrained on the size of the factory that we have today. So we're building a much larger factory to be able to produce or scale up a lot more rapidly. But we obviously we can't just go from one launch or two launches a year to 15, 20. It's a process. If you go back in history and you see how the ramp ups have been done by other launchers, we want to be cautious because we want to build a very much reliable business. So we will be cautious on how we ramp up, and how we also scale our product to have more per year, to produce more vehicles per year.
I realize this is probably going to be my most annoying question. I hate myself for even asking it, but what is the level of confidence about the second Spectrum rocket reaching orbit?
Oof. So that is our target. I mean, we want to reach orbit as soon as possible. Um, we are doing everything possible to get there. So confidence is not perhaps the right question, because I am very confident. If you want to think about, in terms of worldwide, history wise,
Statistically speaking.
statistically speaking, that's a different
Fair.
maybe I'm not the right person to ask that, but
Hmm.
confidence I do have, and very
Hmm.
much so that we'll
Hmm.
accomplish that.
In order to achieve some of these objectives on a rapid timeline that you guys are trying to do, it helps if you have really good people, really talented employees. And for so long Europe has had to deal with this brain drain, all these skilled aerospace engineers and people in the space industry, like yourself, going to work for American companies and moving over there. And I'm curious if you guys are really starting to see a shift now that companies like Isar are around, and now that there is a bit more turmoil in the US launch market, at least geopolitically speaking.
So this is I love this question, because so our company has about 53, 54 nationalities, which is
Wow.
fantastic. Yeah, it's just fantastic. It
How many
tells
employees do you
you
guys have?
about 400, a little
Hmm.
bit more than 400. So it's not any more local or national talent, right? This is global talent that wants to work for us. And believe it or not, we do have Americans, including myself, in the company. So Isar Aerospace Sweden and Isar Aerospace Norway, in those areas, also we can see there's a little bit, yeah, a change in flow of talent as well coming to those places, which is fantastic.
So Isar is finding it pretty easy to attract uh, top talent to Munich.
Let's say it is easier and easier now.
Easier and
It's
easier.
it was not easy in the very beginning,
Mm.
I have to say. But it's becoming easier as we also become, stronger and more mature. As you do that, then talent becomes more interested.
So I know you're not in HR, but what's the pitch to prospective engineers or executives when you guys try to lure them to this startup in Germany, as opposed to like a SpaceX or NASA or ESA or Ariane Space?
So we are, vertically integrated, and there's a lot of power on that for everybody that let's say come and want to join us, right? They feel like they are making a difference. There's not just a paper company. So they come, they see the factory, they see what we are building, they see what our progress is, and they are the ones pushing to come join badly,
Mm.
because they want to make a difference. And I think for us is more about making sure that the person has obviously the capabilities to do the job, but the right attitude, the right perspective, wanting to have this growth that we want and this vision that we have. We want to be the leader and we will be the leader of launch services around the world. And this is what encourages people and gets people excited. We want to be a significant force in the space sector, and this is pretty cool.
And you've got a pretty interesting resume as well, having worked at SpaceX, Ariane Space, now Isar Aerospace. I'd love your perspective on what's been going on in the US between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. How do Europeans in the space industry, how are they viewing this really chaotic moment in the US space industry?
Oh, it's like a cold shower in the morning, right? It's like really waking up to realizing that we don't have autonomy, that we need autonomy in space as
That
Europeans,
Europe
right?
does not have autonomy in space.
Yeah, and that we need that, and that we're dependent. We cannot be dependent on this part. I mean, we have assets in space, right, that need to be protected, and we need to have sovereignty. So these are all things that they don't belong only to Europe. They belong to the entire world, right? I mean, everybody wants that. So it's a wake up call for the entire world, to be honest, what has happened,
Mm.
because it makes you realize, oh my God, we are dependent, and that's not a fun place to be.
How long do you think it'll take before Europe is not dependent on another country or company?
Wow. God, I wish I could say days, if not
Like,
months.
is it days,
But
years, decades?
not decades. No, no. In terms of programs that are coming out in the next 3, 4 years,
Hmm.
I think that if we all become reliable and frequent, that we can cover that. There will be still some dependency on the next couple of years. I mean, there's
Sure.
not enough, but I'm hopeful that in the next few years that at least we can serve the European market and also the entire world from Europe. By the way, we see the same issue in Asia. Asia is the second fastest growing economy on the space side. They are also very dependent. So it's not just Europe. The US is also dependent, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
make no mistake. The Pentagon, NASA they're completely reliant on SpaceX.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
So it's been a big wake up call for everybody. And then, I mean, think about Elon Musk threatening to pull the Dragon spacecraft and saying that they're not going to launch NASA astronauts to and from the International Space Station anymore.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think that was a huge wake up call for the
Yeah.
U.S. space industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see a world where maybe in the future Isar Aerospace is doing something like Dragon did and flying European astronauts to and from locations in space?
I see so many things in the future for Isar Aerospace. It's so exciting. But the first thing I see is a launch within this year that needs to, give us a lot more data and a lot more lessons learned. And but yes, I mean there's so much we need to do in the space sector, and I think right now security and protection is number one, to be honest.
Mm.
So this is where I see the most need, the most immediate need, and this is where I think we need, as an industry in general, we need to go to. Um, and that should be the priority.
All right, Stella, one more question. For people that saw the first test flight and were like, wow, that was so cool. I want to go see this in person. Can just anybody go and see an Isar Aerospace launch?
No, we have It's a very, very tiny island, as you can imagine. And right now we're not yet set up
Yeah.
to host a bunch of people, unfortunately, but maybe we'll get there.
Like, you guys don't have spectator boats. You're not dealing with ships that are like,
Not yet.
SpaceX does, that like scrubs launches because the ships are getting too close to the launch pad. Y'all don't have to deal with that yet?
Not that,
Okay.
I see a mountain behind us and I'm like, that would be such a cool viewing area. But no, we don't yet. We were very proud of that site. It's just out of a movie. It looks like a picture, like a fantasy picture. It's not.
It could
Um,
also be like in a James Bond movie. Like,
yeah,
when I saw that, I was like, is this a scene from James Bond or Mission Impossible?
yeah, it is a gorgeous, and actually we came as the new kids on the block and kind of wanted to do this very rapid because we are so behind in terms of space access in Europe compared to the rest of the world, that we actually built that site in 11 months.
Wow. Well, congratulations on getting the data that you needed on that first test flight, on not blowing up
Thank
the launch
you.
pad, and really looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with Flight 2.
Thank you so much, Kristen. This was a lot of fun.